Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me. For me, for me. If you've ever headbanged to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, you've shouted his name. Beelzebub. It is one of the most grotesque, heavy metal names in the religious lexicon. It sounds ugly. It feels slimy. In popular culture, movies, and video games, Beelzebub is often depicted as a monstrous, buzzing, insectoid demon, the Lord of the Flies. He is a lieutenant of hell, a high-ranking general in Satan's army. Or sometimes, just another name for the devil himself. For most modern Christians, Beelzebub is simply a synonym for evil. A spiritual entity that has always existed as the enemy of God. But what if I told you that Beelzebub began his life as a god? What if I told you that 3,000 years ago, he wasn't a demon at all? He was a popular, respected, and powerful deity worshipped by the Philistines, the neighbors and rivals of ancient Israel. People prayed to him for healing. Kings sought his advice. He was a lord of the high place. So, how did a respected Philistine god turn into a Christian demon? The answer involves a bitter political rivalry, a prophet with a grudge, and most importantly a clever, ancient linguistic pun that might be the most successful diss track in history. Today, we are decoding the biography of a demon. We are going to trace the etymology of the Lord of the Flies to find out how the writers of the Bible turned a rival god into a monster. To find the origin of Beelzebub, we have to go to the Old Testament book of 2 Kings, chapter 1. The year is roughly 850 BCE. Ahaziah, the king of Israel, has had a terrible accident. He has fallen through the lattice of his upper chamber in Samaria and is critically injured. He is terrified of death. Now, Ahaziah is the king of Israel, so you would expect him to pray to Yahweh, the God of Israel. But Ahaziah has lost faith. He wants a second opinion. The text says, "So he sent messengers, saying to them, Go and inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover from this injury." This is the first time the name appears in history. Ekron was one of the 5 major cities of the Philistines, Israel's archenemies. And apparently, this god, Beelzebub, had a reputation for healing or prophecy that rivaled Yahweh's. But the prophet Elijah intercepts the messengers. He is furious. He delivers a message from Yahweh. Is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Now therefore you shall not come down from the bed to which you have gone up, but you shall surely die. And he does. Ahaziah dies for the sin of consulting a foreign god. But look closer at the name, Beelzebub. Baal. This is a common Semitic title, meaning lord or master. It was used for many gods like Baal-hadad, the storm god, Zebub. In Hebrew, this word means fly. So, the text literally calls him Lord of the Flies. For centuries, scholars scratched their heads. Why would the Philistines worship a Lord of the Flies? Was he a god who protected them from insect swarms? Was his temple covered in flies because of rotting sacrifices? Or was he a god of dung? It seemed ridiculous. No ancient culture typically named their high gods after pests, and that's when scholars realized they didn't. In the 1920s, archaeologists discovered the Ugaritic texts at Ras Shamra. These texts gave us a massive trove of Canaanite mythology from the era before the Bible. And in these texts, they found the word Beelzebul. It means prince or exalted one, or it can refer to a high place or a temple. In Canaanite religion, a common title for the storm god Baal was Beelzebul. It meant Prince Baal or Lord of the High Place or Lord of the Temple. This makes perfect sense. Prince Baal is a majestic, respectful title for a healing god. This is almost certainly the name the Philistines in Ekron used when they worshipped him. They were praying to Beelzebul. So, why does the Bible call him Beelzebub? It is a pun, a deliberate, satirical, theological insult devised by the Hebrew scribes. The scribes, who hated the worship of Baal, changed one letter. They changed the L lamed at the end to a B bet. Zebul Prince became Zebub Fly. It is a stroke of genius. With one letter change, they transformed Lord of the High Place into Lord of the Flies. The implication is visceral. Flies gather around dead things. They gather around excrement. They are annoying, dirty pests. The biblical writers were saying, "You call him the exalted prince. We call him the lord of the manure pile. You think he's a god? He's just a bug." It wasn't a theology. It was trash talk. It was a way to strip the rival deity of his dignity and power. And the insult stuck so hard that, for the next 3,000 years, the world forgot his real name. So, in the Old Testament, Beelzebub is a foreign god who is being mocked. He isn't the devil, he's just a rival idol. But as history moved forward into the Second Temple period between the Old and New Testaments, Jewish theology began to evolve. As monotheism became stricter, the status of foreign gods changed. In the early days, other gods were seen as non-existent or wood and stone. But later, Jews began to see them as real, but demonic. The logic was, if the pagans are worshipping something, and it works like healing, but it's not Yahweh, it must be a demon. Psalm 96:5 says, "For all the gods of the nations are idols," but the Greek Septuagint translation translates this as, "For all the gods of the nations are demons." The foreign gods were demoted. They were stripped of their divinity and rehired as the minions of Satan. And because Beelzebub was such a famous rival, he got a promotion in the demonic hierarchy. He wasn't just a grunt, he was a prince. By the time of Jesus, Beelzebub had become a household name for the leader of the forces of darkness. In Matthew 12:24, Jesus casts a demon out of a blind and mute man. The Pharisees, looking for a way to discredit him, accuse him of sorcery. They say, "It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this fellow drives out demons." Jesus responds with his famous logic: "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself." In this exchange, Jesus and the Pharisees seem to use Beelzebul and Satan interchangeably. Beelzebul has risen to the very top. He is now either Satan himself, or his operating title. The Lord of the Flies is now the Prince of Demons. The final evolution happens in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Christian demonologists, yes, that was a job, loved to categorize. They wanted to map out hell like a government flowchart. They decided that Satan and Beelzebub must be different individuals. Satan, Lucifer, the king of hell, the fallen angel of pride; Beelzebub, the lieutenant, the prime minister of hell, the patron demon of gluttony or envy, associated with flies swarming food. In the apocryphal Gospel of Nicodemus, during the harrowing of hell, Satan and Beelzebub have an argument. Beelzebub is the warden of hell who tries to keep Jesus out. In John Milton's Paradise Lost, 1667, Beelzebub is a tragic, majestic figure. He is Satan's second in command. Milton describes him: "Deep on his front engraven deliberation, sat, and public care." Milton remembers the etymology. He gives Beelzebub princely counsel. He restores the dignity of the Lord of the high place, even while keeping him in hell. So, the journey is complete. 1. Beelzebul, the healing god of Ekron Prince. 2. Beelzebub, the insult of the Hebrew prophets, Lord of Flies. 3. Beelzebul, the prince of demons in the Gospels. 4. Beelzebub, the lieutenant of hell in Christian mythology. So, Beelzebub is a linguistic accident, a god who became a demon because of a pun. This brings us to the final debate. How should we view this history? On one side, the historical skeptical view, is this proof that demonology is just ancient political propaganda? Is the history of religion just a history of othering? We demonize the gods of our enemies to delegitimize them. The Philistines were the bad guys, so their god became the bad guy. It suggests that evil figures are socially constructed, born from tribal warfare, not spiritual reality. Beelzebub isn't real. He is just what happens when you lose a war. On the other side, the theological spiritual warfare view, or was the pun a spiritual insight? Theological conservatives argue that the Hebrew scribes weren't just being mean, they were being accurate. They believed that behind the exalted prince of the Philistines was a dark, decaying, spiritual reality. They believed that false worship leads to death and rot. By renaming him Lord of the Flies, they were ripping the mask off. They were saying, "You think this idol is a prince? Look closer, it brings death." In this view, the evolution wasn't an accident, it was an unmasking. The Bible didn't create a demon, it identified one that was hiding in a temple. Is Beelzebub a victim of ancient cancel culture or a monster revealed? Let me know your thoughts on this linguistic mystery in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the hidden history of demons fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that uncovers the real stories behind our beliefs. Thanks for watching.